There we go. Now I got the right button. Good morning. Good Monday Methods morning on a muggy Monday Methods morning. How's that for M's? Enough M's. Hello, everybody. I'm Bradley McAllister, and of course, this is Monday Methods. And do not mind the sweat on me. It's not that hot, but that hurricane is just kind of off the coast there. It's not raining here. I'm all good with that. But talk about humid. Boy, it's sticky. Even with the AC running, it is just flat out sticky. But hey, I'm in South Georgia. Anyway, I appreciate everybody coming in today. We're going to have a lot of fun. Open forms. So today we're talking about open forms. You see I got a bunch of stuff out here. I went in the house and I went over into some boxes and grabbed some stuff. What is an open form, right? What's an open form, a closed form, a hollow form, a bowl, that kind of thing? That's what we're going to cover. So let me see all who's here today. I'm looking out. I see Art Miller's in here. Good morning, Art. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning, Lorianne. Hope y'all are doing well. I can't quite see. I can see Facebook. I don't see the YouTube. I have to have another monitor over there to look at YouTube and see who all is on YouTube. But thank you all for coming. So let's get going. A bowl. Everybody knows what a bowl is, right? A bowl is a bowl. Is a bowl, so to speak. Little simple bowl. We get that out of the way. Okay. Forms. A lot of people get kind of hung up on forms. And what is? Let me get rid of my watch while I think of it. Is it just grab the lathe? What is the right form? Form is a very difficult thing to put your finger on. Good morning, Michael. Thanks for popping in. A very famous wood turner who had the opportunity to. I've seen him numerous times. One time he made a wonderful description that is also one of those to try and figure out. The statement was that line is form and form is line. Now, I'm not going to tell you who said it. If you know, then you know, and that's all good. So that's pretty vague, right? Open forms, closed forms, hollow forms. So we know what the bowl is. I showed you the bowl. We all know what a hollow form is, I hope. And if not, I've got a couple of distinct pieces here to show you. And I've got them out here. And here's our piece, by the way. This is what we're going to turn today. Piece of good old, guess what? Sycamore. Can you imagine I'm still turning sycamore? Pseudo-classic hollow form. Now, this is dark, so maybe I'll stand out of the way. I don't know if it's in the window or not. I'll have to wait and see. No, it's over against the wall. So pretty classic style hollow form. Vessel, small hole in through the top. This happens to be, I knew it a minute ago, and now I forgot already again. It's not magnolia from back in the day. Hackberry. This is a piece of hackberry. So this is a pretty classic hollow form shape, give or take. It's not a special one. It's not one that I was super happy with. It just kind of hung around. I may still throw some colors on it. But that gives you that idea of one shape in a hollow form, right? And I'm just going to kind of set these guys over here where I don't drop them or knock them over today. Another classic hollow form. Long and tall, little teeny hole in the top to get you in there, okay? You got your face shield, Dennis, great, perfect. I'm glad to hear it. Long, skinny hollow form, another classic hollow form shape, all right? That could almost be a vase, if you will. Again, and the reason I talk about it is I'm not one who gets real hung up on the perfect form, and I know I get in a lot of trouble for that, and that's just what it is. There's another hollow form. Looks kind of more like a mushroom, right? These are pretty cool. This is one of the first. I made a dozen. The first time I ever made hollow forms, I made a dozen of these guys, and it's not the greatest shape in the world, and that's why it never sold. But it looks pretty cool from the top too. I'll just kind of show you that from the top. This is poplar. It's what they call rainbow poplar. It's got some. I don't know what that mark is, but early on, if you've never worked with rainbow poplar, it's also called mineral poplar. This was red and blue and green and yellow. Eventually goes to brown. But another classic hollow form, right? I was learning. It was early, but I was happy with what I did. All right. Now, let me get this one out of the way. We got another one here. Actually, it's one of my favorites. It's not a hollow form. It starts to qualify. Really, it is an open form. This is one I did years ago. If you know from the woodworking shows, this is called the horns because of the shape of it. I'm trying to find, I got it all. There you go. There you can see the horns on it. All right, this is definitely an open form. It also has a very natural edge. This is a piece of magnolia. I'm going to try and get myself out of the way, figure out how to do this so that you can see very, very much an open form, right? And this is a big one, and it's got crazy colors on it and all kinds of stuff like that. An interesting form. Like I said, it's more the colors and the uniqueness of the top that made this one so interesting. All right, so those were definitely hollow forms, which are closed. I think of them as closed forms, and open forms. All right, let me move this one over here too. Now we start to blur the line a little bit between our bowl, which we toss back over here, your classic bowl, and a piece like this. All right, now is this a bowl or is it a open form? Again, it's black on the inside, and I'll tell you why we do that. There's the side shot. Let me get it right there. It's probably in the window. Working upside down in reverse, you can see the profile of it. Some might kind of call it a calabash bowl, but I believe the angle here, the pitch is a little too steep between this point and here for calabash, but some could argue that. So this to me is really very close to still being a bowl. It's usable as such. You could put things in it and take them out. So that's right on the cusp. That's why I use this one. Of course, if you had put stuff, it's got a hole on the side. You could put things in here and take them out. You could serve chips in this, and it would actually kind of be functional, although it's decorative. All right. We did this one not too long ago. And let me show you this one in the overhead. This is definitely in the open form, but not hollow form and not bowl. Okay, the way it opens and closes around. This one was really fun to do with the Chromacraft web effects and ChromaGilt. That was really fun. This one is from the same little project. Again, I'm standing here wearing black. One of these days I'll learn how to do everything upside down and backwards. So this one, the form of it is nothing to get excited about, pretty straight up and down. But it's not quite a bowl either, okay, because it recurves back inside. Now, though, here's the one that I used as the piece in the post for this morning's project. To me, this is almost the classic, and this is just my opinion. Everybody's got their own. This is my idea of a classic. Rich, good morning. I hope you got some churning done there, Rich, on that resin. I got to talk to you here about that. To me, this is kind of the classic open form. It's not closed. It's got a nice shape. It's open enough that it's open, but not open enough to be usable. And let me go overhead for you with this guy. So as you can see, and we'll turn it sideways here. And if I can learn how to do things without looking, maybe I should just go like that. All right, it's got a nice shape. It's definitely comes and closes around on the top, and yet it's still open. So if you can get your hand in it, that's one of the criteria I use. If you can get your hand in there, I consider it to be an open form. But if the hole is too small or restrictive for the piece to be functional as a bowl, that somewhere in that line, in that realm, is what defines an open form. So it's that, as I described, it's that mystery between the bowl, which is fully functional, the hollow form, which is decorative unless you put in, say, flowers in a vase. So it's a form that's open but slightly closed, fun to make, very good for decorative projects because you can do a lot of things and they're pretty to sit on the shelf. I'm not going to get into all the rules. You know, I don't like rules. If you want to follow the golden rule, the golden mean, the golden ratio, etc., by all means do. But one of the beauties to me of the open forms, I stick this over here, is that when you've got a piece of wood like this piece today, we have to work with what we've got, right? We all can't go out and just buy perfect wood every day. So a piece of this nature, and again, I'm not sure how that's showing up on the black. I got something over here on my other screen. Nadine, you're a good friend, but I don't think you need to be up there right now. There we go. And Michael Gibson, nice to see you. Why are you guys popping up on there? Craziness, isn't it? Hey, you never know what happens when it's live. These are great forms, great shapes. All right. Arthur Miller says, by the way, I checked. It's a law, yellow, black, yellow. Art, I love you, buddy. I truly do. I almost said I was going to send you a set of those, but you don't have a set of jaws to put them on, so otherwise. But Art, you're a good man. Frank, good morning. Thanks for dropping in. We're getting ready to go ahead and make a mess now. I'm going to put this guy off to the side, too, and we'll get going. I do appreciate everybody dropping in on a Monday morning. They said we were supposed to be getting a hurricane. Of course, if you're watching the national news, you'll see that the hurricane is out there. Like I said, it's not too far off. It's about 180 miles off of Savannah. We're 50 miles inland from Savannah. So I don't think it'll be an issue. I was hoping it would be raining and cold, but it's not. So I had to run the sprinkler this morning. Not that that matters here. So what are we doing now? All right. Make sure I'm on the right camera. Yep. Piece of sycamore. You know this stuff. I've had it around forever. This piece does indeed have, imagine this after a couple of years. It has a bit of a split in it right here. And it also has a knot, a limb knot right there that we don't want to use. So we're going to just clean this guy up. This will be the basis of our form. Oh, you got a Big Easy. Okay, so now I'm in trouble. I owe you something. That's what I get for running my mouth, Art. As you can see, this was cut on the Carter Products circle jig, obviously by my dad, who is my bandsaw man. I'm not sure if Dad's, there's Mom. I see Mom's popping in here now. This was cut on a circle jig, and of course I cannot find my shop version of the center finder, but we're going to mount this on a faceplate. All right, and so by doing so, I've already decided that this is going to be the top. That's going to be the opening, and I'm using a little 3-inch faceplate. What's the bottom is kind of crooked and stuff like that right now. All right. So we're going to mount this guy up. So I just have to eyeball it in there since I don't have my center finder. I haven't been talking much, but I got a hoarse kind of voice this morning. Let me go to side view for you for this. You don't need to see the drill right in the way. My mom's here. I'm going to have to behave. Mom, you want to tell Rich that never really made a difference? Actually, maybe it is better overhead because all you see is my arm in the way. These are number 10 SPAX style screws. These are 1.5 inches. This wood is getting a little soft, so I went with a longer screw. So I get those first two set. I'm going to have to put sticky on these on my bit because it looks like a Phillips, but it's actually a square drive. I prove it to you. That's a square drive, so they don't strip out. But it always sticks in the screw. And I need to make sure this is clutched, and it's not. There we go. See, my mom comes to my defense. I don't pay attention. Follow rules. Not going to happen. We'll go back up here. So I'm wide open for questions today on form shape, especially this open form that we're doing. Like I said, it's one of those. Now here's the rub with the open form. With a hollow form, you don't really have to sand the inside. Or, as I like to think, unless you got nothing better to do, because nobody can see inside. I see where that one went. Nobody can see inside, nobody can feel inside a hollow form. With a bowl, it's a given you have to sand the inside. Let me step down here and get this screw. With an open form, well, you're kind of in the middle of the road, right? So the question is, do you need to really make it super nice or just okay? Depends on what it's going to be. Again, Some will say that everything should be sanded and perfectly smooth and all that on all four facets everywhere. To each his own. That's great. All right. If I'm making a piece and I want to put it on my shelf, and I'm going to look at the outside and not really pay attention to the inside, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I mean, I'm going to make it smooth, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to spend all day trying to make it glass smooth. I may put gloss lacquer on the outside and just dye the inside black so that I don't have to worry about that. Flat blacking your color is a fantastic thing. You don't have to make it perfect. You want to accentuate the outside. I mean, that's what I did with that piece you saw there before. So it's up to you, how much time you want to spend on the inside. If you want to make them perfect, you can color them. There's, a million variations that we can go with here. So we're on our faceplate. We snugged it up. Boom, boom. So we are going to have to cut through the crack. You can see a little bit better now. We'll cut the crack away. We'll cut the limb knot away. We'll make this guy true and flat. I tried to set it to where you'll be able to see this leading edge here as we turn when we get started. I will bring the tailstock up just again to be safe as always. Now, provided that I'm not beat to death and dying of heat and everything, like I said in the post, I'll throw some dye on this guy. We'll dye this at the end. I'll show you how I did that pattern. It's a real simple way to get that crazy kind of pattern. And if any of you saw my post on the weekend or Friday with that black pattern on some boards that are in the van, also known as the Spiver Buggy. A lot of the ways to get, and that was just a byproduct of actually carrying mulch, black mulch that was wet, and the dye and the black leached out. But the real heavy plastic is what gave it that look. So that was pretty cool. At least I thought. All right, so let's get this guy cleaned up. This end is what's a mess right here. It's pretty round on there actually, but it's not perfect. I'm going to use all kinds of things today. I sharpened up tools earlier. I've got my Carter & Son M42 high-speed steel with 10% cobalt. Spidercraft also now carries the Sorby tools. If you haven't been to the store, which shameless plug, a lot of you should have gotten your email talking about how I refreshed the look of the store, and the Sorby tools are in there. This is a Sorby half-inch bowl gouge. Actually, this is a Henry Taylor. Excuse me, Sorby. Sheffield, England steel, nonetheless. So I can retract there. So this is an M2 steel. The Henry Taylors, the Sorbys, they work great. They are not the same edge holding steel as the M42, and the price reflects that. These are a bit more affordable. They work great. That's what the standard was forever and ever. I've got my little 1/4 inch. I know that's a Sorby. We'll be using that. And I found one this morning, and I want to show you this. This is how far some of us will go to keep using a tool. All right, when you get a tool you like, you just keep using it. So that's how much flute is left on that old Sorby half-inch. You can see I ground it flat all the way up here. When I turned all day for a living, I turned all week and sold on the weekends. I ran 3 of these at a time, so I would sharpen 3 and run them all until they got dull. So that's how much you can get to where you really like a tool. All right. I thought I'd show you that because I found it here this morning. Also, for going inside, we'll probably use carbide style tools. This is the Easywood full-size number 3 hollower with the standard carbide bit on it. That's probably what we'll use. I say probably, it's what I'm going to use to go on the inside. There are other hollowing tools. You can use the Sorby HollowMaster. You could use the Sorby Armbre style tool. Any of your Armbre style tools, depending on how big and how deep the piece is, really dictates how much tool you need. Okay, so let's find a speed on this. And we're there. Okay, everything's out of the way. Double check that. Let's see how this turns. That's not too bad. So we'll turn it about, let's say about 800 there. That'll get us cleaned up. You can see the ghost image here in the overhead. So it's not terribly out of round, just a little bit, okay? Not too bad. Let's see, Steve came in. I'm looking around here. Good morning, Steven. I got a Steven and a Steve. I got all these different screens to look at. All right. I also grabbed this morning one of the bigger Carter & Son. This is a 3/4 inch gouge. It might have been the Mike Mahoney wood beater. I'm thinking. I think the last person who sharpened this was Michael Roper when we were at SWAT last year. May it rest in peace until next year because we're not going. So I think we'll use this to just kind of get this guy roughed into shape. Again, it's a weird angle on it. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I just threw it on the grinder and matched what I believe Michael put on there. So that's what we're going to start with, just to kind of get this guy in shape. Good morning, Jim Haynes. Good to see you. All right, we'll go overhead. Shape is my mask in, about usual. I'm assuming everybody can hear me okay, because nobody's saying they can't. Sorry if the fan is making a little bit of noise on there. So to get this started, I'm just going to use the tip of the tool, the very, very tip, okay, just to get this guy going. We'll see what happens here on that little chip. It's just a habit of mine to work from left to right. Again, we are going to have to turn away that knot and the split. Now, as I get it smoother, I'll start to engage the wing more. Can you see how I'm starting to pick up a little bit of a deeper cut there? Now let's stop and see what this is looking like. So that we're turning slow, you get the tear out. You see we still got our split there. I'm going to go ahead and start to, I could make this piece perfectly round and perfectly true and all that. But I'm going to go ahead, let me change cameras here. Like I said, I can make it perfectly true and everywhere, keep it as a nice cylinder. I'm going to just go ahead and start shaping. Good morning, Mary Alice. I hope you're doing well out there on the West Coast. I'm going to start to roll some shape here so that I can see when this split starts to disappear. As I start to roll the shape off the bottom, it's going to take care of this out of roundness here as well. This is Ambrosia sycamore. It's got some spots in it. Again, I don't know how deep these splits are, so we're just going to have to figure this one out. Let's go back to the overhead for you. And I might even go, I think, let's go to the end camera for you. I have everything set on manual. I hope it stays in focus. It's supposed to. I could use a little more light on that end right there. See if that helps it a little bit. Still a little bit dark in there at the moment. So we're just going to start taking this corner right off of here. All right. Now I could turn around and come at this strictly from the end as well, if I was so inclined, but I have to take my tailstock away to do that, but I'll do it just to show you. I hope my voice makes it today. Move my gear around. This is a pretty piece of wood. Hopefully that crack doesn't run too deep. Okay. That looks about right. So we can also just use the tip of the tool again here. We can come in from the center just to get this flattened out. This is the way we're going to want to be eventually cutting. We're going to want to be cutting downhill anyway. Now this is a big tool, and I guess it's me personally. I'm not a fan of having a super heavy tool in my hand that much. I'm going to turn up my speed a little bit now. So I'll probably switch tools here pretty quick. Again, this will be the bottom. This is where our tendon will be. So I'll leave room for that. I'll come around. See, beautiful wood here, right? And you can see how we get a nice clean cut when we're cutting down the grain, downhill, so to speak. But our question is going to be this split that's right here still. That's going to be what's in issue, all right? So I'm just kind of roughing this general idea here. That's looking good. The split. Oh, so now, can you see that? I see that looks better. This is really interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm going to take my mask off for a second so I get some fresh air. If you see this divot right here, so that was down underneath all that wood. Now, I didn't see, but there it is. I believe that chip, or that might have been a corner, maybe I'm wrong, but there's a big old chip of wood that was obviously already loose up underneath there. Why is that worth pointing out? That's why we wear a face shield, okay? Eye protection. Because obviously that was a loose little shard right in there, and I'll go to the overhead with it, that came flying right out of the middle of nowhere. Obviously, you know, the wood was compromised in here, and we got the crack and all. But that's kind of interesting. You never know what you're going to find in these things, all right? Okay. So we know that we've got to get rid of more of that and more of this split. Now, I'm going to go ahead and run down this, which camera I'm on overhead. I'm going to run down the side a little bit more. I'll be going the wrong direction. I'm not worried about the finish at the moment. I want to see how much of this I have to take away, okay? Chris Sparkman, good morning. Thank you for dropping in. We're out here making chips in a mess and having fun, working on our open form, trying to get around the cracks and the chips and the divots. I just want to take a little bit of this top off. Doesn't want to go that way. I may have to wait till I want to turn it around. I think, based on what I'm seeing, I'm going to come back over here and take a little bit more off the bottom. I believe, I'm just guessing, I believe that with another pass or two, I think we may clear this split right here, okay? And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and make the tendon, and then I can make my shape, start my shape from really determining my shape there. So I'm taking pretty heavy cut. Because I want to get rid of that split. That's my number one goal. It's still there. If it fights me and doesn't want to go away, we'll just make this a thick-walled piece, because I'm not going to go hunt for another piece of wood, and then we'd do some kind of decorative something to this guy after a while. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and make our tenon. I do, if you don't know me, I am more of a tenon guy than a recess guy. And I'm going to put this big old tool back over here on the rack and find my calipers. There they are. And we'll make a 2 3/8 inch tenon, because I might end up using some bowl jaws on this today, which would be the EasyWood bowl jaws that I would use. So we're in the end camera there. I'm checking my calipers over here. I'm going to set them at 2 3/8. And actually set them at 2 1/2. Give myself a little margin there, just a little margin. So there's where my calipers will read. All right. Now let's play. Let's have fun. My old school way of making tenons was with a bowl gouge. I'll do both again today with the EasyWood tools and a bowl gouge. The EasyWood tool square cutter just makes it so easy to make a tenon. But I'd like to play with all the different tools for you. Yellow and black. Art, you're not going to let me go on that, are you? So we just clean this up. See that? There's a natural line. I just kind of checked that natural little line right there. And that's just pretty much what I want for my tenon size. So I'm going to reach in here with my bowl gouge and just take the tip and just refine that and say, I grabbed a little too much, so I'm going to go with the outside edge of that. So it's going to be right there. We'll double check that again. So I'm somewhere in between the two. I've been using the square tool so long I haven't started one with the bowl gouge in a long time. That's my excuse. Make sure this is slightly concave. Alright, I always just check it with my tool. If I see daylight down through there, I know that it is slightly concave. Alright. So with my small 1/4 inch or 3/8 pin on the brand gouge, I have the wings really flat. I know I'm not zoomed in, so I can actually make a flat shoulder right there. Now this is going to end up getting a dovetail for the Easy Chuck, but I can come right down in there, and you wouldn't be able to see that in the overhead, and I can flatten that section out right there. All right. Now the difference would be if I use a square style cutter. Find the appropriate one here. I can just come straight in. Because I have a right angle, I know I get it perfectly flat. Okay. And I can also check the length of my tenon by using the cutter itself. Let me hold that up there a little bit higher. The length of this cutter on the EasyWood tools exactly matches the length I need in my chuck jaws. So I look and see if that's right there at the back edge, back corner of that, and it is. Okay. All right. just to be sure. I'm gonna double check. Yeah, so I'm plenty good right there. Now you can also see though that the cutter actually lifted up those fibers a little bit. That's the very bottom, and we're not that terribly concerned, because we're going to carve all this away anyway. All right, but now we know where our very bottom is, but we still have to put our dovetail in there. Now we could do it with the bowl gouge. The easy way is with the detail tool from the EasyWood tools. Either one will work. They'll 10-degree dovetail. We may want to mark our center if we need it for anything, okay? And then we've got our tenon. So now we know how small we can make this, because I'm not overly happy yet, and I'm going to go overhead for you here. I'm not overly happy yet. Let me get you some point of reference. I found that I painted my banjo black, and so I can get you'll be able to see, you can see that. The profile there a little bit better. So I want some more shape in this, right? I want a little more roundness, but I've got plenty of room to work with now, because I've identified I just need a little teeny bit of the flat there, okay? So that's all I really need. So I'm going to go down to a smaller tool in a bowl gouge. Drop down to my Carter & Son. They call it a 1/2 inch. Sorby would call it 3/8. It's always a little confusing working with the two different sizes. And I'm just going to kind of establish, I need to leave just my little bit of flat as usual right in there. It looks like I could use a little flatter right there. There we go. Okay, so I think what I will do, we're in the end camera, I'm going to go back to the overhead now so you can watch this shape develop, or begin to develop. I'm going to pick my speed up a little bit. Just using the tip of the tool. The bevel is just kind of floating along. It's not really rubbing. It's just kind of riding along. Now I'm looking, I got a lot of extra on the top at the moment. But then again, I haven't exactly decided on just what the shape is going to be. So I am looking up here and thinking as I go about this shape. But I kind of want to define what I have on the bottom here before I turn it around, so that I don't have to worry with this later on. Okay, and since I don't know where I'm going to break this, where I'm going to make this turn, I need myself a black, where am I at? I need my black, I can almost see down, you can't see, but I can see down on my toolbox there. So I see I've got a high spot right in here. Alright, so I need to take that out. I need to scratch an edge too. So let's come in here and get this high spot out, right? I took a little more than I wanted to, but that's alright. I got a feeling I need to because of that crack. I'm trying not to get my head in the way. spot right there. And there's our crack. It's still in here. See, we're on the overhead. Yeah, that crack is still in there, doing some strange things to us. Okay. I'm starting to get pretty happy with that. All right, you see I've left myself lots of latitude up here. Tons and tons of room up here. Okay. Hey, Corey. So, after I take a quick sip of water here, we're going to go ahead and flip this guy around now. And start on the top. Well, like I said, it's not hot, but it is humid in here. So I apologize for my less than perfect hairstyle, but you get that sometimes. As long as we're having fun. Anybody got any questions while I'm changing things around here? I'm wide open to questions. Anything that might come to mind. Nothing is out of bounds. If I don't like it, I'll just tell you that no, I won't go there. No politics. All right, none of that. But anything that might be on you, if you're wondering about anything here, just fire away. I am here to answer your questions as much as I possibly can. Hey, I see a breeze picking up. Maybe we're starting to get some wind from that storm out there, which will bring some moisture with it. We haven't had rain here to speak of in about at least a month. And it was 100 and something degrees yesterday. Everything's all burnt up. Grass is all brown. Have to hand water to the flowers out there every morning. So again, we were using 1.5" number 10 SPAC style screws. They look like a Phillips, but they are a square drive as well. All right. Where are you headed with this? Where am I headed with this? I am headed to something in the form of what I've referred to as an open form, Craig. Along these lines. All right. Something along that line. Not a bowl, not a hollow form. Flares out, flares back. Something in, I always get them crooked when I'm looking at the green screen behind me. So that's where we're headed with this. And no news on the mask yet, Jim. Those are still out there, unavailable to me. Okay, chuck. Bradley needs a chuck. Throw on the Easy Chuck here. Set of 2 3/8 inch jaws. Well, thank you, Craig. Like I said, I don't think you were here early on. Go catch the replay, and you'll see what I was talking about in the beginning. I had hollow forms up, and I had a bowl as a basis, going from a bowl to showing a hollow form which closed with a small hole, and then the open form concept that we're playing with here now. So it's one of those in-betweens, which makes it fun because it doesn't really have, I don't know, maybe it doesn't have as many rules around it. You can make them, a lot of shapes and be happy. Can you make an ugly one? Yeah, you can make an ugly shape and you'll know if it didn't work out. Your friends will certainly tell you. If you ever want to know about shape and things like that, I mean, you can read all the books and go to the symposiums, which is wonderful. You'll learn a ton. If you really want to know what other people think, and especially outside of the wood turning world, if you want to know, Luigi, I see Luigi's replying over there, over on my other thing. Well, you're getting to see the extra on the feed, it looks like today. If you really want to know what the public think about your work, start doing art and craft shows. even if they're just local, not high scale, $50, the local annual event, take your work down, get a booth, put it out there. You will learn an immense amount about what people think. Because the public is not afraid to tell you, because they got no skin in the game. They'll tell you what they love. And they'll look at other things and just you'll see a kind of grimace and go, my God, what is that? It's the best education I ever got. I did it for quite a few years, and it was amazing. What I thought sometimes was really great, people would just look at it and walk away or turn away, and things that I thought were nothing to get excited about, people loved. And when it comes to color and not color, dyeing our wood and whatnot, some people love colors. Other people would ask me, how in the world could you possibly put color on that piece of wood? And I usually would be a smart aleck and say, with a brush. There's something there for everybody. The public will tell you what they think. The wood turning world is much more critical. So if you want another version, an evaluation of what your shapes and your forms are like that are good, the public will let you know. Case in point, like this hollow form you may not have seen, Chris. So this is I made a dozen hollow forms. The first time I ever made hollow forms. And this one just was a dog, right? I drug it around with the others for 5 years. Couldn't give it away, never sold, just a bad shape. But hey, it was all right. It was one of the first ones I made. It was practice. But that's how we find out. Go out there and put it out in front of the world, the real world, and you'll find out. The other thing that's important, like on say this piece, so I've got splits and cracks and all kinds of things in this. Nobody knows how big this piece of wood was when I started. You guys do, because you're here watching the video today. But nobody will know. Nobody knows how big this was, so they don't know what I had to go through. One of my favorite stories about that is I had a piece that was 18 inches in diameter and about 24 inches long and weighed 80 pounds when I put it on the lathe. And it was a piece of poplar. It had a bunch of splits and cracks and checks and junk in it. And I was going to make this big hollow form. That was my plan. And when I finished, it was still about 16 inches in diameter, but it was about 6 inches thick. That's all that was left of it. Beautiful piece, dyed it turquoise. It's super cool. Things don't always go the way you want. I'm not one also, and I have no problem showing you wood that is less than perfect, because we can't all afford to go out and buy $60 blanks to have fun with. It's just a lot of money. All right, so I'll work with whatever I've got. That's me. Find a way to deal with it. Of course, I like knots and limb holes and different things for the organic aspect of it. Okay, so we've got, let's see, get back over the overhead here real quick. Here's our basic bottom shape that we've got going, right? We've got all this extra wood up here. So we'll start to carve this away. And we'll see what we come up with. Now, obviously, the piece isn't going to be nearly as big as what it started with. But, again, I still got splits way down here, that little split way down in there. So that's just the nature of the beast on this piece of sycamore that dried out so much. Alrighty. So I'm going to give you the end shot there so you can see well. And I hope you guys let me know. You didn't tell me last week. The cameras weren't always staying in focus. You didn't always let me know. I'm going to drop this camera down just a little bit, so I'm going to go back to the overhead on you for a second as I come over here and adjust this camera. You'll see the overhead rack move, but you won't see the camera that I'm actually move. It'll make you nauseous. Because I always want to make sure I've got the best shots for you guys. And I'm going to change the setting here real quick. On this, and I'm going to get you right inside here. And I'm trying to set it up for once some of this wood is gone. So bear with me, if you will, for a minute. That way we don't have to do it later. It's always hard, under pressure, it's always hard to do it fast. I think that might do the trick. Oh, let me make one little adjustment there. Thank you for your patience. All right. That looks pretty good. Let me know if that doesn't stay in focus once I change these cameras over again. I'm gonna double check that I am on manual, and there now we're on manual. Okay, that should stay in focus. So there we are. Oh, didn't hit the button. There we go. Now you'll be able to see what's going on in here. And as this gets smaller, you'll be able to see the shape really well. Absolutely, Craig. Changing your bandsaw blade. Be careful. Those things are sharp. All right. Back into the face mask. Let's see, what else? We haven't used a round carbide tool. Like I said, I like to mix it up and use everything for you guys. So we're going to clean this up with a carbide tool on the face, the Easywood tools. If you're not on the mailing list and you haven't seen any of the posts, Spiracraft is having a midsummer sale with 15% off in the Spiracraft shop. You just go to spiracraft.com and click on shop. We have all these tools that I'm using. This is a shameless plug. Code is J15. Will save you 15% off on anything that Spiracraft carries in the shop. So we'll just get this cleaned up with this carbide round finish tool. We're still humming along pretty good. We're turning 1200. Now what I'm going to do, I don't know if I'm going to bring tailstock up here or not. Probably not. I'll probably slow down a little bit while I rough this. But that cleaned it up and you see the screw holes. I'm going to switch over, because I want to move some more, I want to move more wood. I'm going to switch over to a bowl gouge. And where's that old, I'll use the Henry Taylor. I haven't used this guy in a long time. Same as our Sorby, virtually. Okay. Because I don't have the tailstock in place, I'm going to get vibration if I don't go kind of easy. Stop, move my tool rest, and I'll just start to get this into a general shape here, and then we'll start to play with what the final shape is actually going to be. We may cut some of this top off. We may cut that top down some. That's the end. Let me put you in. The end is still probably the best view for the moment. I'll probably switch to the overhead here in a second. Yeah, let me switch to the overhead for you. Try and get that where you can see it. Move my tool rest in. Now this would make a great hollow form as tall as it is, but I'm going to end up cutting some of this top off. Of course we could put a ring on this today. That might be kind of cool. Bradley, let's not commit totally to cutting that ring off for a second. All right. I love to see an opportunity jump up on me. I'm starting to get an idea here, play with some ideas. So I don't know if you saw that lift that up, because I was cutting back in towards the center, which kind of, and then I used a lot of, actually moved it, so I'm going to turn that just a tick. I saw it actually knock it loose in the chuck jaws, not out, didn't knock it out of the jaws, but I saw the whole piece flex. Good morning, Jeff Peters. How you doing up there, buddy? Alright, that's why I should have my tailstock in place in here. I'm kind of liking, we're in the overhead still. Yeah, I knocked her out of whack a little bit there. Not too bad. I kind of like this idea maybe of leaving this ring on here. You know, just something I'm playing with as I'm looking at this. I know it'd be weird, but hey, weird is fun sometimes. So let's come around here. Could do a lot of different things if we do this. Well, I think there's no if about it. I think as we say down here, I'm fixing to. So I grabbed a little teeny 1/4 inch gouge, 1/4 3/8 pennant. This is a 3/8 Carter and Son 1/4 inch Sorby. So I'm just kind of flattening this off and thinking about it and looking down here at things, trying to decide what I might do with it. Okay. I do know that I want to make this. I want to make these two profiles match this curve, right? So we've got some work to do there still. It's a pretty piece of wood. We do have that split right here, but we might kind of hide that down, and there's a little bit right in our little ring that we're building here too, which I think I'm committing myself to be quite honest. I'm actually going to come over here and take some of this top off. How's my time doing? 11 o'clock. Oh, I'm good. Hey, I was ready to go early this morning. Dick Gerard. How are you, Dick? Dick, I'm out here doing goofy things today, buddy. I'm changing my mind and putting Saturn rings on a open form. I'm having fun in my 2 hours a week that I get to turn, Dick. I hope you're feeling better up there. So what I'm doing is I'm shortening this up, and as I shorten it up, I'm kind of looking at the overall balance of the piece with the thought of how is that going to work out for my opening as my open form. Along with this new ring idea that I've thrown onto this guy. All right, so I'm just kind of backing this down and looking at the overall piece while I do it. I don't have an exact plan, so I just kind of keep taking some away. So as I go. All right, let's go back to the overhead. Yes, Dick, goofing is fun. Just hanging in there. Well, buddy, you keep hanging in there, okay? All right. I'm going to take a little more of this off. Of course, last time I did it that way, I knocked it loose. We're in the overhead there. Let me put you back on the end camera so you can see what I'm doing here. That way I can also lean over this. Okay, and now I'm going to switch you to the overhead so you can see how I'm working to line these two planes up. All right, coming out of the ring here in the center. You can just barely see it over there on that side. The floor, let me get the floor clear, maybe you can see there what I'm talking about. So these two planes are going to come together. Move my tool rest a little bit. Try and keep my head out of the way. So I just kind of lean back and bring this around till it starts to match up. Now that's real close right here, and I know that I want to take a good bit off of this guy, like somewhere up in here. So what I'm going to do real quick here, so that I can lean on this a little bit, because I've knocked it loose once there in the tenon, so I don't want to do that again. So I give myself a little support. Looks like I need to clean up that center. And I'm going to throw the tailstock on this real quick. And might actually make a secondary piece. So here's a cool little idea. We're going to make a little teeny bowl out of this. Let me go show you the end. So there's the screw holes from the faceplate, right? Well, I'm going to chop part of this off. But let's not waste it. We might use it for something else. It could be a shop jig. It could be all kinds of different things. So let's take those screw holes away while we've got it on the lathe. We'll put a tenon on this little guy, because we might use it as a reverse jam kind of chuck. Let's see if this will do the trick. I hate wasting anything. Screw holes are gone. Just about. There's a little teeny bit of screw hole left there, and we still got a little bit that we can take off of here for our tenon. If not, this would be a good rubber band bowl. Won't sit on your desk, or God knows, something like that. All right. So we're still fine there. Dovetail on this. We're getting a freebie here. If nothing else, like I said, a shop jig. So the screw holes are gone. I'm on the end. Screw holes are gone. Our dovetails on there. We got a 2 3/8" tenon just for whatever we might need this for. We make sure it's flat. Okay, that's all good. Now I'm going to grab a parting tool, and I do love. Where am I at? I'm in the end camera. The Carter & Son, this is the 16th inch parting tool. I love this parting tool. This thing is fantastic. There's a 16th, 8th, and 3, or 16ths. The 16th is my favorite. The way this thing steps up, it's super easy to sharpen. I've just been a real big fan of this particular tool. Now I'm going to cut some of this off to make our opening and make our second little piece there. So I'm just going to think about this for a second, not too terribly long. And let's think right about here. And I'll have to make a little extra room in here, because that's a long way in there. Got a nice captive ring going in there. Yeah, we're on the end there. That's all good. Okay, so let me take the tailstock out of here now. Free that guy up. Dial her down as we get close. All right, good deal. So now we have our extra little piece for whatever we might need it for, or just for fun. This ring here, yeah, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave this ring here, if that's the one you're referring to, Rich. I put it into the design all of a sudden. So we cut that off clean right there. So now we can continue on with our shape. All right. Which, we're going to roll this over some more. Choice of tool. I want to cut downhill here to get a nice clean cut. So I'm going to have to start in on this open edge. Okay. What are we in the end camera? How's that looking? Let you see it in the overhead. So see how I'm rolling this top over now? And now our curve essentially comes up into our piece here. We're going to clean this up back in here. Our curve comes up and disappears into our ring, and then comes out the other side into our top of our form. Don't ask me what I'm going to do with this ring thing, because I don't have a plan just yet. Winging the ring, as you might say here. All right, so let's go to the back side and clean this up. Jim Brinkman. Easywood Tools has a nice new design. They do have the new parting tool. I don't have one down here yet. Gonna have to get on those boys. They've changed the design, not radically, but considerably. All right, let's see here. What do we want to do with this guy? The question I have is, I'm just trying to decide what I want to do with this. Do I want to do something like that? Let me use a round. Speaking of Easywood tools, let me use a round. I love these for the round tool for kind of sculpting ideas. I got you in the overhead, yeah. So when I knock this out of the round in the chuck, it's just a little bit out. So we'll just clean that back up. Alright, it's kind of an interesting effect right there. Not 100% if I like it or not. You see what where are we at? Yeah, we're looking down here. Let me find something, see if I got something that's dark. Ah, not that. so you can see the profile. I'll use anything in a pinch. How about a mouse pad? There we go. So the question I have is, so I've got this little ogie right here, or do I make the bowl just pass through, make the form pass through and follow the line up and to match that? So they both have their own merit in their own way. Of course, they're dichotomically opposed. I mean, one is perfectly flat, cornered, one is nice smooth roll. So I don't know. Decide which way to go here. Classic traditional, I think, would be to follow the bowl through, but I don't always like to follow those traditions. Though I think that looks, in this case, I think tradition is going to maybe win out. It looks a little funky, if you will. If I had left, I'm going to get a fresh air here. If I had left enough to roll the top in the same way, then that might be a cool idea. But I think I'm going to go ahead and take this away just to keep it even. All right. That's why you stop at it, stop and take a look. If you're not sure about something and you're working in your own shop, you're not watching the clock like I have to, walk away from something. If you're not sure about it, walk away from it. Go to lunch, come back the next day if you've got the time on the piece, and let it stew on you. You don't have to make the decision immediately, and it never hurts to try things that are different. You might make it, and over time you go, well, that was a bad idea, but hey, it's not a big piece of wood. So I could leave it this way, I could change it. I'm just not sure which way. I'm not sure I'd roll them. I consider a sharp design on the top. Yeah, that's why I'm with you on that one, Rich. In this case, I think I'm going to go back and cut it sharp. Just because I don't know, it just kind of appeals to me, at least today, a little bit more. There's other days when I'd say, no, I'm going to leave it there. And if you make a shape and you regret it, well, hey, it's not the end of the world. And Jim says, chance to be creative. You're right. So you can go either way, and that's the beauty of this hobby. Wood turning, you can make it any way you want, and you can make it two ways. Make one like this, make one a different way. That's what it's fun. It's a hobby. It's a great time. Do what you want. Remember who you're trying to please. You're trying to please yourself. You're not trying to please the other people. If you are, in my opinion, you may be going at it for the wrong reason. Now, if you're trying to sell things, there's a little bit more of a perspective there. But do what makes you happy. All right? The guys at the club, hey, they're nice folks. They may or may not like what you do. Trust me, first club I was in, they looked at a lot of my work and went, huh? But that's okay. I went on from there, moved right on along. So I have no regrets. So try new things. That's how you get places. So I am going to go ahead and cut that away just because it's just what I want to do today. It's what's coming to me. So we're gonna clean that back up. Square that back up, if you will. So to do that, I'm going to come in here with a square Easy Wood tool and cut this back down. Now, so I'm in the overhead. Notice that I can work with the front or I can work with the side. And working with the side lets me kind of creep up on it a little bit. All right. To a point. And then I'm going to switch back over to my little 1/4 inch bowl gouge. Left-handed, which is always scary for me. Now I'm going to start to curve this back around. And this is real flat on the top. You can see here, this top edge is really flat. So when I come up against this, I'm not worried about cutting into it. I can just kind of roll right up to it. So what I'm doing is I'm looking over here. Trying to make that blend. And then I just kind of shear scrape with that flat edge right there. Okay, and that's pretty darn close. The overhead camera is not perfectly overhead. Let's stop here for a second, and I'm going to move this tailstock so you can see straight up and down over that. It'll help me too, as a matter of fact. So see, I put the black under there. Now that profile passes right through as if we had slid that little ring right over this guy. Okay? So that's pretty cool. I like the flex. I mean, the sycamore is really pretty wood. All right. Again, we've got these little splits in here. We've got a little split in there. So I'm going to clean up this ring on the top. The bottom isn't too bad, because I'm going to throw a little dye on this for you today. This again, a little 1/4 or 3/8. If it's a Cardinal stone, so we'll call it 3/8. And that cleans that up real nice. There's a little tick in it because of the split. I'm going to give it a little bevel right there, just a little bit. And then round that corner over. Okay, cool beans. Voice cracks. All right. I may try and clean this up right here real quick with my quarter gouge. Again, there's a split right there, makes it want to jump around a little bit. I'm real happy with that, so I don't really want to take too much off of that. That would sand up if I was being particular. So just an ultralight cut right there. Okay, and I'm going to leave that alone. All right. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, I'm going to come in here. I'm doing all the work on the outside before I go inside. Yeah, Jim, I agree. And Jim and Rich, I think flattening that out was the deal. Was the better choice today. I'm going to clean this up just a fuzz right here. I hope my head wasn't in the way. Come right up to that, roll the tool over. Right in it, clean up that corner. See how with that flat grind on the tool, I can get right up against my little ring there. Okay, so that's all cool. That's all good. All right. So next thing is we go in here and take the middle out. All right. We could use 1,000,001 different things to do this today. Yes, you could drill it with a Forstner bit. I won't say it's cheating, but it makes it happen fast. I'm not going to do that because it also tears up the quill on your lathe if you're not careful. I think I'll start with the bowl gouge. I'll just hog some of this out with the bowl gouge just to get started. Although I want to be careful because my tenon, this wood is not super strong. And I'm going to leave the wall fairly thick because of that split. This wood is pretty soft, as you can see. Now this is a really good project for practicing going down pretty far inside a piece with a bowl gouge. That a piece that has a curve to it. Optimally, if you've got a lathe, I'm going to move this controller. I'm trying not to lean over into my shoulder in the way. How far can I go? Let me see. There's where my shoulder starts to come in. It's a good way to practice coming down inside, further inside a small piece with a bowl gouge than you might normally be comfortable doing. Okay? I can use it to drill a hole down the center. The further you get over the tool rest without moving the tool rest inside, the harder it is to control. So I'm all the way across the piece. And then swinging back around. Okay, another way to do this is with a dedicated style hollowing tool. In this case, do I have a negative rake on the number 1? I don't. I wish I did, but I don't think I'll take the time to change it. So I'll just come in here with a standard round cutter in a carbide. There's another option. Check that. A lot of different ways you can get here. Whatever way is easiest and works best for you, that's the way you want to go. Now what I'll do is I'll go about halfway down in here. Get rid of that nub in the middle. My tool rest is just a fuzz low, but that's not bad. Okay, now again, like I said, I'm not going to make this real thin because of the crack. Okay, but instead of reaching way around, if you can do that, if you happen to have or want, if you're doing other hollowing, you can get a gooseneck style tool, which allows you to reach around a corner much easier. The key with these tools is make sure you work off right here, coming right off on the same axis, same direction as the end of the tool. Don't try and cut up here on this face. It'll vibrate like crazy. So cut on this end right here. In this case, you want to make sure you stay on the flat section. This is the EasyWood number 3 full-size hollower. They just came out with the Pro series, the Pro size. I tested those for them. They're pretty cool. This allows me to easily reach around the corner in there though. And then if I want to come across the bottom, I can just rotate the tool over so that I'm still cutting off the very tip until I run out of room right here. Okay. Stop, we'll go back in with a straight tool. We're just going to whip the inside of this out of here real quick. And then we're going to put some dye on it. And there's a lot of things. This thing is cool because we put the rim on here. So we could come back after we dye it and we could add accent paste to it. Gosh, it opened up a world of opportunities for us. From a design standpoint. You could bead this. I could take the beading tool out. I mean, I would have left it a little bit thicker. A lot of different things that you can do with a piece like this, and it's a small piece of wood. It doesn't take a lot of wood. To make a cool piece. Now I'm going to try something here in a minute. with a little 1/4-inch tool to clean this up. Because this is, being an open form, this is one that we can see inside and you can get your hands down in there and all that stuff. So I've got a little 1/4-inch tool. Some of you know it's my little favorite 1/4-inch guy. It's kind of got almost a traditional grind on it. Mike Mahoney's got he uses it in the big version as a bottom feeder on a 3/4-inch tool. I don't have a big one ground this way, but I'll pull it out here in a second. Okay, let's check that. Take a little bit more out of the bottom. Not that this one's ever going anywhere, but if you're going to do it right, you might as well do it right. I leave a little extra in the bottom in case when I turn it around I have an issue with my tenon. I always leave myself a little bit of something in there. Okay, now, one of my favorite little tools to work with is a little teeny 1/4-inch. This is a Sorby. It's a 1/4-inch. It's got almost a very traditional grind on it, and then the heel's ground away. It allows me to come in and go right around a real tight radius corner. All right. Now I can also, depending on, see this tool rest, the web is pretty big. I could go to a round tool rest, which I think I've got one laying right here. Let's see if this will work, which would let me get, because that 1/4-inch you can't go over the tool rest very far. But if I want to sneak a tool rest inside here, I can do that. Now I may end up reaching it over in front of you guys, but this will give me a nice clean cut down in through here. Also, if it's all you have, let's say you don't have the carbide style tools. If you don't, let me move that. If you don't have, hook style swan neck carbide tool to reach in around the corner, there's a lot of ways that you can get there with the different tools. So don't be dismayed if you don't have everything in the in the book. You don't have to own all the tools. It's handy, but it's a lot of money. All right. So I'll start all the way over here, and I'm going to come in through here, and I'm going to try and keep my head out of the way. And I'll just come right down through here and clean this up. All right. Get all the way over here to where I can pick up the cut. Now I can actually see the cut line going down the opposite side of the piece. Clean out my chips. So you see how I can reach in there with a little 1/4-inch tool. I'm getting a real nice clean cut, so I don't have to do much of that dreaded sanding stuff. Okay. So we roughed it out with the carbide. Now we just reach on around the corner, and I can sweep all the way across the bottom of this. And it cleans it up super, super quick. All right. Move that in there a little bit further. Hopefully my arm isn't getting in the way. And so I can feel the ridge. I've left a little ridge right there, so I just reach back in where that ridge is. Pick up the cut again. And just keep pivoting the tool right around. All right, clean it back out. I got my air over here, but we don't need to blow it out for that. All right. Now to pass down through there, what time is it? 11:32? Okay, we're all good. I can't quite see. I'm down in a shadow in there now. There we go. it's a super handy way to clean that up. I mean, that's nice and smooth in there, all but the very, very bottom, where I've got that. I mean, all the way down to, I know you can't see, I'll go overhead. It is perfectly smooth all the way down to about here. All right, nice smooth. I got a little bit lift right in there, and it's getting hard to see. I would need to get a light in there. If you haven't seen what the tool looks like from the side angle or the overhead angle, I'll give you a shot of that when you're reaching in there with your little bowl gouge. And again, I don't know if you can see here, I've got, if I can't get too close because it will go out of focus, the heel is ground away. Very, very short bevel on this guy. All right. So let me get down in here. And let's see, it's a nice, fine, clean cut coming right out of there. All right. So we're going to leave it right there. What do you think? I'm thinking I'm getting hot and sticky. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with the way this is working. Beautiful piece of wood. You know, I'm not even going to sand this today because I want to put some dye on it for you. I'm not even I would sand it. This piece, I would start with 180. It's really pretty smooth out here. Sand it with 180 and then 220. I don't go past 220 when I use the dyes. In this case, it's alcohol-based dyes. I've also used aniline dyes or water-based aniline dyes in the past. Either way, I don't sand past 220. I don't want to seal up the grain. I don't want to burnish it. I don't want to get it closed up. I want it to absorb as much as possible. The alcohol base that I'm going to use today does not raise the grain, which is a feature that a lot of people like. The water base does raise the grain, which is a feature that I like when I'm trying to make my pieces look really deep. Let's see. I think on this one, I'm going to show you, and it's never been finished. And this is a different dye technique, but it's only sanded, and as you can see, it's still, the finish hasn't been finished. And this thing's been beat around for years. When I made this thing in 2012, the depth, a lot of the depth, the look of the depth in there, other than the black spider webs, comes from having the. I forgot to change camera, dummy. Now you can see the depth I'm talking about, kind of, sort of, other than in the black spider webs. The depth comes from leaving that only sanded to 220 and adding a water-based dye, which makes it fuzzy. All right, and when it makes it fuzzy, then I would leave that fuzz. There's a hole in it, natural hole. I'd leave that fuzz in there, the fuzziness, and I would fill those valleys with the lacquer. So this probably has 30 coats of lacquer on it. Just needs to have it finished. You can see how even after the lacquer dried, you can see some of, this is why it's not finished. See some of the grain still showing there when it raised up a little bit. All right. But that's why you don't want to make it super smooth. Now I'm not going to do the spider web. This effect here is done with, I put the pink on it, and then I put lacquer on it, just a coat or two. And then I put the black dye on and I chased it around with air. Now you can buy Web Effects from Chromacraft and get essentially the same thing. Not exactly the same, because you don't quite have the same kind of control. But this is just aniline dye on top of lacquer chased with air, and you get the spider webs. So I can't do that today because we don't have that much time to let the put a coat of lacquer on it and let it dry. We'll just put this one out here. So with this guy, and you shouldn't dye on your lathe. So I'm going to bring out my little board. My work board down here, my paper. I use it for my resin work and whatever else, and it's got colors on it now. But that's okay. Brushes and gloves. Is anybody out there doing much in the way of dye work? Anybody? Anybody doing a lot? Any? Some? A little bit? None? It's a lot of fun. Now, so here I have, this is a little, I don't know what, I guess they call that one a 1/2-inch brush. Just cheap China bristle brush from Harbor Freight. Then I've got a regular 1-inch cheap China bristle brush from Harbor Freight. All right. Let's get some dye out. And I'm going to dye this guy. I'm going to work with a light and a dark color today, and I need to let some of this, I need to let this first coat dry. So we're going to dye this guy yellow and get my gloves on. Maria, you haven't tried that yet? The dye is a lot of fun, tons and tons of fun. Jump in the store and get somewhere that's 15% off. Get yourself a half dozen colors to play with. Get a clear, and it's not hard to work with at all. It opens up a world of possibilities to you. You can get, if you're crazy like me, you can just get all goofy and have a ball. And be sure and get some black dye, so that when you make something that's really, you got too many colors and you just don't like the pattern, dye the whole thing black and spray it with gloss, and it will be totally awesome. So you can't go wrong. When I in the past I've taught dye classes in person with people, and they always wanted to do everything perfect, and I tried to get them to loosen up, and it was always really hard to get them to loosen up. See, Rich says, I grabbed a little storage container that sits under the piece perfectly and covers the bed. Great for wet sanding. Yep. Luckily I'm not getting wet here today, Rich. So for the yellow, I'm just going to pop some into, that's why I kept the pliers around. Just pop some into one of my yogurt cups. He says, just like that. And this will make just a nice light yellow tint on here. Then we need to let that dry, because here's what happens with dyes. If we put this dye on and then the other color I'm going to use is an indigo blue, so it's really dark. If I put them on while this first one is still wet, they're going to bleed together. Now sometimes that's kind of cool. If we can get it to dry, and the alcohol dries pretty quick, and if it's going slow, I'm going to reach over and grab a hairdryer. If you put wet on wet, they will blend and bleed together like watercolors. If you let the first color dry, you can come back with a second color with no barrier in between, and as long as you don't put it on real heavy and wet, you can put a second color on and not get bleeding and blending and all that. So I think, because I want to show you a technique with this brush, so I'm going to use the 1/2-inch to put the yellow on. So let me just go, the light looks weird when I put the white boundless, doesn't quite do right on there. So I'm going to leave it in the front shot. Well, I'll go to the end because it's cool. White balance on this overhead camera is always weird. You can see, I'll show you, it goes yellow, which we know it's not. So we're just going to brush this on. And I'm going to do the whole thing. There's a little bit, and this is the Chromacraft dye, there's a little bit of sealer resin and shellac in here, or resin and shellac that works as a sealer. So I'm going to do the whole thing. Now, one of the keys to doing a dye, they say on your first color, do the entire piece. If the phone was to ring right now, I would not answer it, because if I come back, I would have two different colors, because I would end up with one coat that was dry and then a second coat. So to keep it uniform, and I'll switch to the overhead now, even though it's not the actual right shade or hue. Make sure you do the whole thing before you stop, all right? So that you have a uniform color. No, Jim, I did not dilute this at all. You can. This is just straight out of the bottle. Okay. Now the end grain, if I wasn't in a hurry today, I could have sealed this with the clear sealer we have, which would help this end grain not soak up so much, but the rest would still take the dye, and I wouldn't get quite as dark an end grain. Yeah, you shouldn't get dye on your Easy Wood chuck jaws, but I do a lot of things that I shouldn't do. That's nothing new. Okay, so there we are. Again, the end grain is a little bit dark, just because it's not been sealed and it's taken in more dye. And I wish that color. What I'm going to do, here's what I'm going to do so that you can see this color more accurately. I'll let this auto camera do its auto thing. And I'll pull that out of the way. And it should go back to this non-yellow. I'll go down here to the end for a second and see if I can't get that to get back to its normal color. Still having a little bit of an issue there. And if I dare try and raise this camera for you, there you go. That's the true color. The overhead camera's white balance is off. Okay, so this will dry really quick. And I'm going to put that back up under here. Now, for the next color, here's one of the things. I know this is crazy, seems crazy. This piece is pretty small, but I've used this technique on a whole lot of things. I take a regular 1-inch brush, and I bend back both sides, take my scissors, and I cut the whole middle out of it. Okay? Now, it's even better if you've been using it for a while. If it's worn out. All right? So you cut the middle out of it, and I'll show you here in the overhead. So now you've got 2 forks, right? It's all the 49 cents that you've destroyed here. And it allows you to do a variety of swirls and patterns and twists. So it's an interesting, fun way to mess with brush, to do little patterns. Now this guy needs to dry, and it's going to dry. Now I could do a Jimmy Clues here and find a lighter and light it on fire and get it to dry out. I did that once at the woodworking shows. It's in a hall where there was no fire marshal. Lit the alcohol dye on fire on the piece. I was in the back of the hall where my area was, my education booth, and I had nice purple flames flying. It was really cool. I had a great time. The audience made me do it. They pushed me into it. So let me, while this is doing its dry thing here, and I'm going to wait as long as I can dare. I don't know if I have any black in here. The other thing that I would do is on this piece, I would dye the inside black. Okay. Go ahead and sand it to whatever degree you want to, but dye it black, because the inside is not important. That's not what you're going to be interested in. That's not where the focus is going to be. So that's why I take these pieces and I dye them black. And now this one that I'm showing you right now in the camera there, this turquoise ring, it has an interesting little story. The turquoise ring, I'll turn it here. This was in my spray booth. My voice is going. Up in North Georgia. And it has a spray booth up there. I can spray about 8 pieces at a time on Lazy Susan's, spraying my lacquer. Well, a rat had gotten in there, decided it was going to go in, and I guess it liked lacquer. And it went around and took a bite out of 8 pieces all the way across all the Lazy Susans I had built. It took a bit out, chewed up the top of all of them. So I ended up returning, just mounting this in the chuck and turning the top away, but then I had that bare edge. So I went ahead and just dyed that turquoise, which is a little hard to see there. You can only really see the turquoise if I go back over here, which was a pretty cool little effect, but it's all because of a rat. Silly rat. So you never know what's going to make things happen. Okay, so this is starting to look a little bit dry. I'll get my violet out. We'll see real quick. If the first bit bleeds, we'll know it's not dry enough. Again, the water takes an hour or 2 to dry. The alcohol base dries pretty quick. It's probably not going to be quite dry enough, but we'll see. We'll do a little test. And I'm looking around because I want to show you what I stumbled upon. I don't mind making this thing a mess. I really don't care. I could sand through it. I could turn it away. Whatever might come to mind. I was going to see if I could find a real heavy piece of plastic for that pattern that I ended up with in the other day. It's not quite. This is just a Ziploc bag right here. So I see that's drying down pretty well. This is a faux finish technique with all kinds of different things that you can do this with. So we're going to go to the overhead, and I'm just going to dip this down in here. Now I'm going to blot it on the paper. Get this other corner. Just a pure random. Effect. You can do as much as or little as you like. One thing, if you do these kind of effects on the lacquer, like we have in this piece, if you put a lacquer sealer on there first, you can always take it back off because it won't actually soak in. Where's my hair dryer? Well, it's actually over there in a box, but I didn't feel like chasing through. I don't see this bleeding out too badly, Michael, so I'm not going to worry about it. So that's the one technique you can do. It's just super simple. You need a stiffer piece of plastic than this one, really, for that to really do what works well. Now, the brush with the forks in it. It's always a fun one. Now, here's a key. It's a combination of what makes the effect look however it looks is a combination of how wet or dry the brush is, how much dye is on it, how fast or slow you move the brush across the piece, and how much pressure you put on the piece. So 3 different things control it. Okay? And you can test it on something. You can see the little lines I get there. So, I can just say I want to go like this. So those are a little not super heavy. If I lighten it up and go faster, that was too heavy. The brush is still too wet for that. Let me get some of it off of here. There we go. Then you get a completely different effect. So all from a little brush, all right? You can get all these different looks. You can go, and this is pretty wet, so I'm going to put this one on pretty wet. You can come along and then you can spin your brush. And I'm going to take this thing and just go crazy on it, because this is how I like to do these. And let's say I may or may not want to get up in that groove. You could dye this whole edge black, just with the edge of this. And it's going to bleed over some, and that's okay. Again, a coat of sealer would have helped this, but again, I didn't want to wait for the dye and the sealer both to dry. Now this looks black on here, but as I said, it's indigo blue, and when it dries, it will look lighter, as will the yellow. Okay. Now up here on the top, so I'm going to go to the end camera. We haven't done anything. I'm going to stay real light and wispy up here, or try to. The more worn out the brush is, the better this effect works. This was obviously a brand new brush. It hadn't been used at all. Purely random. And then the other thing you can, I can't believe my voice is really going, that is fun to do is come in with another color. So you don't have to stay with the one color. And if you might think that putting another color over the black, you wouldn't see it, but you actually will when it dries. Like in, which piece is it? In this piece right here, and I'm going to hold it up here like this. Can you see that little purple shade? There's a little shade of purple right in here. I don't know if it's going to show up in the camera for you or not. There's things like that you can do. And it messes with the eye. I'm looking for another. That's the best one right there. It's real subtle right in there. Like I say, this piece needs to be finished. It's been beat up for years. You could seal this then. You could now seal this if you wanted to with a lacquer or whatever your choice is, and then put more dye on and get different patterns. Or we can add another color to it real quick. I've only got so many colors here. I've got orange. So some orange might make an interesting look. So if I take, because I'm not afraid to just kind of get after this guy. The orange and the yellow are going to be very similar, but they're not going to be the same. All right. It says it's a pop top, but I don't believe it. So this orange actually looks pretty red, and that's okay. So I'm going to take the yellow brush, get most of the yellow out of it, and let the orange come up onto it. And we'll go back into the overhead, which of course, again, the light balance, the color balance is off on the overhead. And I'm going to kind of dry this one out too. And I'm going to add this third dimension to it. And even on the black, I'm going to put some right there on the black. And that's okay. Now, you have to like Jackson Pollock stuff for this kind of technique to be cool to you. But I do. And then up here on the top, same thing again. With the orange. And you can just play with it, and you either like it or you don't. What is interesting is once you put a clear finish on this, you would be amazed at how much this pops, and it makes the wood pop and the dye strokes really pop. It doesn't, you don't really get the full effect right now until you get some clear on it as to what it will really look like. All right. So that's me being goofy. God, my voice is really rough today. Get some of this stuff out of the way. Put that back there. Over there. All right. So that's just a little bit of a way that you can do, a real abstract color on a piece. Let me get this out of the chuck. Big mess, big mess. Go to the floor. Go to the floor. Don't you love working with dye? Good thing it's the work table, huh? You'll see that in next week's shot for something. It'll clean off, he says. Of course, my hand, it was clean. I just took my glove off when I did that. Oh, well. Not the end of the world. At least not the end of my world. Pop this guy out of there. And there we have our form. Let me get myself out of the way. Worked out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know how that. I'm trying to wait and see what that looks like against the gray for you. I'm watching myself clean up the mess right there at the moment. And I'll go to the overhead here. Maybe the color is back in the overhead. So make the inside black, completely black. There's our profile. You can see you get a good shot there of how the open form passed right through the ring. It's just a continuation of it. So it's not usable as a bowl, but it's not a hollow form. All right. And here's another nice little shot from the side. Get this back to flat again. Jim asking what clear finish? I would use lacquer. Lots of lacquer. Okay. And when people say, what's a lot of lacquer? Or I use a lot of lacquer and it doesn't look like that. Well, a lot of lacquer to me is about 30 coats. Okay. I've had people say, oh, I use a lot of lacquer. And I, like 6 coats. And I go, well, that's the first day. So for a piece like this, if I wanted to make it shiny, I would put 6 coats a day on for a week. And I'd let it sit for a month. And then I would come back and finish it. I sand after the first coat, or after the first day. I sand it, and I sand it after the second day. I don't sand between the coats. I just sand after the days. And after the second day, when you sand it with 220, and that's all I ever use, the first day you'll see little shiny pock marks and spots. The second day, when you sand it lightly with 220, you should see all dull. And that way you've flattened down, you've cut the peaks down and filled the valleys up to where the finish itself is flat. Once the finish is flat, just keep putting your lacquer on. And like I say, about 30 coats will get you there. Rattle can, be careful. Use a good quality rattle can. The Chromacraft has been fine. I haven't seen it shrink too bad. Deft, that you buy at the store for $4 or $5, I don't know, it's been a long time. It never gets really hard. It stays pretty soft, so be careful with that one. The Minvax is pretty good. Belden is good. Any of the higher quality lacquers that you can build up are going to do a good job for you. And then finish the finish. Polish it, and you'll have a ton of depth in it. You'll have a ton of depth in there. You're welcome, Michael. I got my voice. Arthur and Michael, you're welcome. I had a wonderful time. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to have to get out of here. I'm going to take a real quick sip. So I'm going to stick this in the overhead and take a sip while I wait and see if there's any more kind of questions pop up before I completely lose my voice. Rich, less coats if it's a brush. Rich, when you brush it on, it's harder to get it as smooth than if you sprayed it. So theoretically, and there are high builds as well. If you have the pocketbook for it, Jim Brickman, you're welcome. If you have the pocketbook, you can get a high build polyester finish. It's used on drum kits. It's about $200 a quart, and you can get there in like 1 or 2 coats and make it look like it's a foot deep. But for us mere mortals, building takes a while because lacquer is really thin. You can use poly. The issue with poly is if you're taking the pieces out and showing them on the road and people are picking them up and handling them, and if they drop them and they scratch them, then you have to physically sand it, and you might sand through the layers, and you can see that. Lacquer's a really easy fix. It's the most forgiving finish there is, to my knowledge. Even the water-based lacquers are starting to get to where they're pretty good now. Maria, you're quite welcome. Thank you for coming in today. So, sorry about the cough. Building up the depth is really the key. And like I said, you don't need to sand after you've got the finish flat. There's no need to. Lacquer always melts into itself. So that's one of the beauties of working with lacquer. You do need to ventilate in wherever you're working. If it's high humidity, get some Celisolve, and I'm going to spell that incorrectly, but it's Celosolve, and add about 10% Celisolve to your lacquer when you spray it, and it will keep it from blushing on a hot, humid day like this. I used to spray when it was raining here in Georgia, up in North Georgia. On a rainy day, I could spray in the rain in the spray booth and not have it blush from the humidity with a little bit of Celisolve in there. Rich says, thinking of olive wood resin piece I started. Now, resin, Rich, would be another way to build a high build finish really quick. You probably could brush on a resin. I haven't tried it yet in that regard, and try and build up a finish, a real thick finish. But you got to get back down to flat. And then polishing the finish is the key, which of course we can polish the resin pretty easy. We know that. And that would make it nice and durable too, and it would give it a nice thick high gloss. I have seen people start dipping. I've seen Zach do some dipping on pieces with his resin. So that's a good way to go. Well, it looks like it is 12 o'clock, 12:03. I appreciate everybody coming in today and hanging out. Don't forget, Spirecraft again has a sale. We extended it until Wednesday for the 15% off of all the goodies that are in our new fresh looking little store. J15 is the code. If you don't know where else to see it, you heard it here. Jump in there and we'll get it out the door to you. Thank you for joining me on Monday Methods. We'll be back again next Monday with who knows what, but it's always fun. And I'm glad you guys came and I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much. Maria says, would cherry work well with the dyes? Maria, you need to, it will work, but the darker the wood, the less the effect is going to be. The lighter the wood, the closer to a white canvas, the more the colors are going to work. You can dye cherry. You won't see the effects as much. It'll be a much more subtle effect. Okay. Hey, Dwayne, I didn't even know you were hanging out. You're quite welcome. My pleasure. All right, everybody. Have a good week. Stay safe. I got my new Volkswagen mask, so I'm good to go when I go out. Anyway, I'll see you all on Monday. Take care. If you got any questions, email me, shoot me a note, message me. Always happy to answer. Have a great week. Be careful.